Please follow me in order at 6:35. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Trustee Pierce is absent. Trustee Peterson.
Present.
Mayor Gurke.
Present. No trustees are attending remotely. Mayoral reports. Again, it's that time of the year already. It's already September, but this is a couple items to recognize, at least between now and the next meeting. This is Suicide Prevention Month. It is also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. We have Hispanic Heritage Month, and tomorrow is September 11th. Hard to believe it's been 24 years since that happened. Not to dwell on it, but obviously today and the last couple of days we've had some bad gun violence things. So hopefully pray for those in Colorado, families, things. It's kind of getting tiring to see this every day. So just mention that. You guys over here, what did you guys get in trouble for? Is this a class?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Is it class or community service? Which one? Class? All right, okay. All right, thanks for coming. Welcome.
And practice.
Yeah. We have citizens wishing to address the board. Anyone sign up there? All right, that's always a good sign. That means things are going good. Consent agenda. I have 4 items on the consent agenda. Is there any item that anyone wishes to remove from the consent agenda? All right. Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion in a second. So move. Motion trustee Bluthart.
Second.
Second trustee Peterson. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Peterson.
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. Next is consideration of regular business. Consideration and approval of payments of accounts payable as prepared by staff, the amount of $827,325.45. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. Roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
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 5 voting yes, motion carries. Next, couple items. I know we're not on the cow, so if there's any discussion or questions, I will entertain those. The first item is item number 6, consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the village administrator to enter into an employee leasing contract agreement with MGT Impact Solutions. For those who don't know, that used to be HR.gov, for community planning consultants resolution number 25-78. Do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. Any discussion or questions? All right, roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
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 5 voting yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing and approving and ratifying the purchase of consulting services for the Village of Antioch HR Green Building Inspection and Community Development Services, resolution number 25-79. Do I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson,
Second.
second trustee McNeil. Any discussion on this item? All right, roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
McNeil.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. Number 8, consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the purchase of 1 Ford F-150 police responder from Curry Motors, as well as uplifting emergency equipment from Ultrastrobe and R Page products at a cost not to exceed $65,000. Resolution number 25-80. Do I have a motion in a second? Motion trustee Mackett, second trustee Bluthart. Any discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Mason.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
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 5 voting yes, motion carries. Administrators.
Good evening, so just very briefly, I'd like to welcome Becky Kajak, our new senior accountant here from her shortly. She comes to us with a wealth of experience from Downsburg. She was president, correct? The treasurer for the village of Downsburg, so she's the senior accountant. She's Michael Peterson's right hand right now for working with a lot of our accounting matters. We did also recently post HR generalist positions. That position is live and active. We are actively accepting applications. And the HR field is looking for a position such as that. Please refer them to our website. The Village Hall and Village Hall landscaping was completed this week, so you had an opportunity to stop by and check it out. I think it looks very nice. Reese did a really nice job for us on that. A number of us attended the Visit Lake County Luncheon earlier this week, so we had the opportunity to network with professionals from throughout Lake County, talk about tourism impacts and ways to make our community more attractive from an economic development standpoint. The new public works facility pre-construction meeting is scheduled for later this week, so that'll be kind of the kickoff towards the groundbreaking for that project. The AV training in the new Village Hall was completed, so we are on track to have the first Village Board meeting in the new facility. The second meeting in September. Expect some glitches. It's new technology. It's much more complex. So just be patient with staff and work through some of the challenges with that meeting. But we are on track to host that meeting in the new facility. There's a meeting on Friday with Hitchcock and staff to review the 50% design development towards the Centennial Park Rehabilitation Project, which is part of the OSLIT grant. So we'll hope to have some updates for the board at the next meeting following that. Antioch Marketplace continues to be appointed, especially as I share with the board. We had extended a term sheet to the developer to work through some of the development needs that they may have. We have a meeting with them tomorrow to talk through some of their responses on that. Again, more to follow with the board. And Loveland's Phase 4 continues to move forward. The model prints are with HR Green right now. We're looking for some of the development components to that. So project's still moving forward with the development of that project, but it's in the early stages, working towards further review. And unless there's any questions for the report this evening.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Village Clerk, any reports? Trustees, any reports?
Just got one.
Trustee Basic?
So I just got a question. So we just implemented for social media branding, we've got a policy in place. So when Village of Antioch puts out a post, and then a trustee puts out a post that's 100% inaccurate, who's policing that?
We are, obviously,
Since I brought it to the attention,
yeah,
so I just wanna know who's policing it, because that's 100% inaccurate, that comment. And then when a trustee goes on a village post, and if I were on the post and said, no, that's inaccurate, then it becomes a meeting.
you hit the nail on the head, and the third one goes on there, and then it's majority of a quorum.
Right.
You trigger the event. I will, if it's okay with the mayor and yourself, and I talk to the administrator. I will send an email, or I'll send a memorandum before the next board meeting that will outline what the parameters are and reinforce what is permissible and not permissible. I will own some of the blame. Maybe I didn't explain it well enough during my presentation. But you are 100% correct, trustee, that if 3 people engage in an electronic conversation, that is the definition of it triggers the Open Meetings Act, and then a violation could occur if there's no posting, which is contemplated situation that you're talking about. So with your permission, Mayor, I will issue a memorandum. I will recall to the social media policy that was discussed during the presentation, and I will ask for compliance therewith to avoid any intentional or unintentional violations of the Open Meetings Act.
Or branding issues. You don't wanna ruin the branding by saying one thing which isn't true. We hired a company for branding.
I don't
That was
disagree
my
with
statement.
I don't disagree with you. You know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I am not the branding expert. No one would want me to be their branding expert.
Normally, that's why we hire a company.
Exactly, but I can address the Open Meetings Act stuff, and I'm more than happy to do so. Is that okay? Okay.
Anything else from any trustees that reports anything? All right, then I would entertain the motion to adjourn. So moved. Motion trustee Basic,
Second.
second trustee Peterson, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting is adjourned at 6:45. All right, we're gonna roll right the next meeting. If any of you do not want to stay for the next meeting, maybe the whole meeting, now's your time. I will tell the teacher if you left early. We have I'll take roll call.
Oh, we'll watch the YouTube video.
Call the meeting order, call it to order at 6:45.
Trustee Mason?
Here.
Trustee Luther?
Here.
Trustee McFeely?
Here.
Here.
Peterson absent, trustee Peters?
Present.
Mayor Gurke?
Present. So before we start, mayoral report, I saw a pull board on something. And I know we're down one trustee today, but I've had requests again. Everyone who's been around here for any amount of time knows that the gas stations have been here multiple times regarding gaming. Requesting, and again, to me, it's a side, I feel like we're doing the same thing over and over, so I'm gonna ask the board, do we want to put that on the agenda again, or has the decision been made? Tell them, put the board's, made their decision. I'm just looking for a consensus one way or the other. They asked me, I think trustee Mason did ask time to have it put on the agenda. And I just thought, board hear the same spiel that they heard 10 times and define probably.
Well, we gave the liquor store everything he wanted. He's got the 3 cents gambling liquor, and now he's got Delta 9. They should at least be heard because they're losing 40 cents a gallon and 1 mile going north. So,
Yes, last time, so.
Voted yes for it.
Or, and I don't know if trustee Martinez has been briefed on this.
I would enjoy the opportunity to be there on site and for the request. I voted yes as well last time.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda. For reference, you may see another group, another liquor store that is also after the sporting license too. So I would like to limit this to gas stations at this point. So the people that acquired that they come for us either the next meeting or the first of October, depending on what we have next. Okay. All right. Thank you. Assuming nobody wishes to address the board again, and we will go on to the regular business, which is the approval of the August 27th committee of the whole minutes as presented. Do I have a motion and a second?
So move.
Motion trustee Bluthart, second trustee McNeil. Roll call, please.
Mason?
yes.
Luther?
Yes.
Yes.
Martinez?
Yes.
5 voting yes, motion carries. Oh, shit.
Yes.
Oh, who's new trustee? Yeah, new trustee.
All right. There was that pause with Pierce out there. Okay, sorry. Next is item number 2, discussion and presentation regarding the planning and zoning board recommendation for Adrenaline 27. The applicant is here to answer questions, and I'm not sure who's presenting that. Is there anybody from staff presenting that?
I would be more than happy to. This is a recreational facility. It passed, so
Not cannabis, recreational.
sorry, yes, not cannabis. Sports, we all like sports. Recreational facility in an area where we had previously approved such a use. The board passed it unanimously. This was one of those situations where, there was an argument that it didn't even need a special use to go forward. And the board was very, I don't want to say violent, but vehement that this is the appropriate thing to do to grant this. I would, if the applicants want to come forward and just give a very, very brief description of what they're trying to do over there, I think it'd be very helpful.
And I believe this is the one where there was like the heavy weightlifting group that came.
It's across the street.
Oh,
Same-
but they've not been.
Same concept, yeah.
They ended up opening up in Wisconsin.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm the owner of Adrenaline 27. So it's a softball facility, and baseball can be there too. We do like pitching, hitting lessons. Sometimes we have teams, but it's mainly pitching and hitting lessons, private hitting and pitching lessons.
Questions, any concerns? All right, we will move this on to the next board meeting for consent agenda. That's okay for approval. And yeah, we'll welcome to come back and we'll vote that day. And that'll be the 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you're just in time for the good stuff, Scott. Item number 3 is. Right. No, you're good. Discussion regarding a concept plan for the Village Hall building located at 874 Main Street. I have Kim Biederman here to do the introduction, and I have the applicants here to do the presentation. There should be a revised rendering in your packet. for review.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. I want to introduce and welcome EM8 Properties back again with revisions to their concept plan for the Village Hall building, which is the 874 Main Street, the one we're in right now. Emar and his team will have a presentation that they would like to present to you. Emar?
Steve Spinell, I'm with the EMA Properties as well, and Kinsey Group, who does the general contracting on behalf of the developer. We appreciate the opportunity to be back in front of you. We think we did a good job listening to you. We've engaged a different architect and a different land planner to kind of relook at the whole presentation that we presented originally and take into consideration what we consider a lot of the thoughts and feedback that we received. And I want to introduce, with that said, I want to introduce Mark Boriski, principal of HDM Architects. And I will kind of walk through what he's done, where we were and where we are today, and be happy to take any questions you may have.
Good evening, yeah, how do I have my fan?
Hey, this is the last time we'll have to worry about this. We have real technology. Yeah, this is the last hurrah right here, guys.
So, good evening, so I get a call, HDM Architects and Planners. We're a small little boutique firm, we're based in downtown Arlington Heights. We've done a lot of redevelopment in downtown Heights. I don't know if you're familiar with downtown Barrington. They built at the corner, but I call the corner of Main and Huff, where the Starbucks is in that project. We worked with a private developer and Barrington in cahoots together on that project. So we don't have a methodology other than we try to listen and then try to fit what's right for that community. Okay. So I get a call from Steve, and you can put up the first plan, and said, hey, you know, we ran into.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't do it.
Yeah, just hit the down button.
The
down button.
Glasses, down button. See the down. Down button.
Give it to Steve.
Steve, are you? That working again? There's only 3 slides. Shoot. The other down button. That was the up button. So Steve sent me the plan, the site plan, okay, and said, hey, what do you think? And this plan, if you recognize it, is very similar to the last plan. There are a couple key differences, however. We like the last plan, you know, putting architecture and putting retail hard up on Main Street makes tons of sense. Putting residential above it things. The first thing we asked was, where's parking for the residential? Because that's a key component. You know, we're not big believers if you build it, they will come. You know, these residents have that someplace to park. The other thing, so the parking is to the west, across the street to the west. So we are now showing conceptually the very south, that sort of lighter purple, that there'd be a lobby for the residential, both facing west and facing Main Street. You're activating Main Street, so somebody can leave. That's all. North, I believe.
North is at the
North
top
is
of the
up.
page, yeah.
Yeah.
You said west.
Yeah, so does this have a pointer too? You're
It-
gonna really challenge.
It doesn't work real well, but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, easy, yeah.
Can I stand there and then have nobody's back?
You're fine.
Yeah, easy, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's an existing building, I believe it's the bike shop. So
Yeah.
it's got a red brick or red painted brick bike shop. So conceptually, we're saying that the lobby for the residential component would be right there. So what we want is you guys have this gorgeous park, kitty corner, the northeast corner. You just spent all this money. It's a gorgeous park. When I visited, there were people out there, there's strollers, everything else. The opposite, the building we're in now, is kitty corner. So what we want to do is put a strong statement at the corner, because that's sort of the north end of your Main Street. The concept, this plan, as I said, is very similar to what you saw before. There are 2 big differences. One, we think the lobby for the residential needs to face Main Street. So somebody's in the residential units, they go out on Main Street, they go right to the restaurants and they activate the street there. And then we also think you need an entrance going west towards the parking lot, because you need a way for the residents that are parking across the street to get to their house. You don't want them to walk all the way around. The third thing is Tough is, I'm sorry, it's Avenue. You can see on this air photo, you already have it queuing up for a left turn or a right turn. So the concept plan that we were given had the access for the parking for this site, accessing right on the top. What we're proposing is you've got that parking just to the south that we connect to that. It creates a safer situation where you don't add another curb cut on top and you're integrating it into the, we also gained a bunch of cars in that area. So the concept of the site plan that we found before was good. All we're doing is conceptually tweaking it, but the details make a big difference. The purple area, we hope that we can get a whole bunch of retail. The magic of retail is what's the right balance of retail, because we don't want to create retail exemption. So we know we have other amenities that have to go into the building, you know, have some back of the house and all that. That is, candidly, it has not been worked out. You know, we're looking at a concept here to say, hey, we think this works really well, and that can be, you know, worked out, and we call it a transition. If there's a real high market for retail, then let's build more retail. If there isn't high market, then we've got to find out where we fit those other uses for the residential uses. The second slide, I'll push the up down button. This is what I was handed, and I got it in an email and a phone call, and you know, my comment candid was a lie, and not understanding the context or anything. And the firm that did this, no qualms, this is probably not their best work. You know, and so we were asked, what would you do different? The first thing we did is we drove out here and we took a look, tried to understand. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I know Antioch like all of you know Antioch, but we're just trying to understand the flavor. So, you know, and you're talking about a three-story building, you say, is there a precedent for anything? Is there a precedent for three-story? So if you go to the corner of Main Lake Street, where the bank is only a two-story, but it's got the height of a three-story. Look directly next to it, it's a three-story mass. That bank building takes hold of that corner, and that's what we think that this building should be doing, the same thing. Unlike this building right now, it's set back from this corner. We think you should be hard up and embracing and providing an anchor to the entry to the downtown. And then you look at, you know, all these old historic images. Some of the buildings have been retrofit over time, some more successful than others, but they all have a lot of similarity. If you look, there's punch windows. A lot of them have that steel lintel with the storefront below, and then they've got brick above. You've got a lot of them have a recessed, if you look in the lower right, they have a recessed entrance into the store. So that when the door opens, you're not holding, you know, into the sidewalk and the light. There's a variety of color. A lot of them you can have the gap to get to the parking. So there's a lot we saw that said, okay, what can we do? This is a concept. Okay? It has not been worked out. Please don't ask me details about almost any of it, because it is a character concept. That's what we're excited about. Here's what we were trying to do. We're taking a look at what you guys have in town right now. Most of your buildings are small. So we looked at this site and said, what's appropriate? How do we break it into smaller pieces? A single building is not appropriate for that site. We think 2 and 3 buildings are appropriate. So as you're on Main Street, just like that bank building's holding the corner, we think that's the dominant corner, and that's where you create a strong piece of architecture. And then as you work towards the bike shop down Main Street, then you've got a secondary, perhaps a little subservient piece of architecture there. You can see that we're picking up, just like you have throughout downtown, whether it's a true steel lintel or a steel lintel, to express that you're carrying the brick, and then a storefront. Okay, I mean, it looks a lot. If you look at that, you see a lot of similarities with Steakhouse. It's literally across the street, right? They've got that whole black front, the storefront, and the light. If you go to the right, and remember to the site plan, if those are going to be, that's going to be 3 stories of residential, but you've got balconies or patio on the first floor. The building is recessed in there. that street has got a different character than Main Street. So there, that building's pushed back, mainly the 8 feet, if you have a place for somebody to feel safe in a patio right there. And you can see there, we put balcony. We didn't think that balconies on Main Street was appropriate. So whether it's gonna be, it's a term, Romeo and Juliet balcony, I don't know if you've ever heard it, you've seen them on other projects where there's literally either a French door, a full height door, or a slider, and then there's a rail, but there's no place to stand, but it's a way to get natural light in, and that's got a different character. So we could put Romeo and Juliet's perhaps on the street, but I don't think we wanna be putting formal balconies hanging out on the front on Main Street. But the idea is to break it out into 3 big chunks and have the architecture be familiar but different. Whether it's, I see that one gentleman's got a Wisconsin shirt on, but he's texting, what are you listening to?
I'm not texting.
This is not school, you're okay.
We have assignment for this.
All of us that are on our, we're just going on an assignment.
They're texting if it's like, God, this is boring.
So, you know, that's got the character of Cream City River, right, that comes out of Milwaukee. Right? So the idea is to break it up into chunks, you know, and that's the concept. You know, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, you know, first off, figuring out, you know, what the site really holds, things like that. But I think there's a real neat opportunity playing off of what you guys already have in place. And then just breaking it up into manageable chunks without it looking like a 19 Ponderosa steakhouse where it's broken up too much. And that's it. Once I get talking, I talk a lot, so I'm gonna try and stop it. And I've got, the idea is to listen because we're here, I was asked to be here to listen because these 2 guys are real excited about the site. And we're just trying to get some traction.
First question. How many apartment units are in that? Conceptually, this building, there's 14 parking spots.
There's, right, conceptually, there's about 42 units.
So you don't even have parking spot per unit. So where are they gonna park?
My understanding is that there was parking across the street.
In the municipal parking lot?
Our understanding has been that, that there would be an arrangement between the municipality and the developers, that we would designate a certain number of parking stalls across the street in municipal parking that would be designated for this project.
I don't even know if we got an ordinance, no parking overnight in this parking lots. So we'd have to have some type of agreement that someone's gonna park there all the time.
That's the intent.
That was our very first question.
And then I think we have another, if this is gonna be condo units. Or,
Apartment, rental apartment.
okay, we already got over 1,000 apartment buildings. Is on an ownership, there's supposed to be so much parking per unit. In an ordinance of building a home.
Understood.
So you're asking for lenience against that also, and to use our municipal parking lot. Which would be used for events and whatnot, whatever that parking lot's used for, different summer concert events. Parade, it's gonna be a residential parking lot.
Mayor, if I may. What we're trying to accomplish this evening, trustee, is determine if there's conceptual support for that, this type of development on this parcel. Admittedly, there's a ton of details that we still have to work through. There's the parking challenges. There's potential agreements that would have to be put in place. There's studies that would have to be done by the developer, their cost. There's a lot of work as we look out. But hearing the concerns of the board last time about the architectural elements, the design and the intended kind of concept of the original proposal. The developer has worked with staff and mayor to come back with a revision to see if this better fits the board's vision for what the downtown would look like in particular this site. So we admit and acknowledge a ton of things that we would have to work through from a logistical component of how function of the building would work on the site with parking. But we're just trying to get a flavor for the board and whether or not they think we're heading in the right direction.
And then we had a moratorium on apartments, so we have to lift that. And we told brother and sister they couldn't build their apartment building a couple years back. that's a bunch of concerns. I don't wanna fall into all of a sudden we get sued and we told them no.
All right. I appreciate the effort put into this new alternative. I personally love it. I think you're heading in the right direction. The only fault I see in any of this is obviously the parking issue, which I believe we can work out because I believe there's plenty of parking over there that we can use. You know, I would love to see condos instead of apartments, but if that's not in the plan, I get it. This will be a huge improvement to this area of downtown, and I can just see this attracting more restaurants, retail, everything to downtown. And we might have a lot of apartments in Antioch, but the thing that I'm hearing is the quality of those apartments. So if you have a high quality apartment, you're gonna get a different level of tenant, you're gonna get a different atmosphere, and I look forward to it. I wish we could have snapped a finger and this was built, but I know that can't happen, but I'm all in favor of this idea and just working through all the details and making sure we do it right, but get to that point. I think it would be, this new drawing really fits in with our downtown. And I think this would be a great addition to Antioch. So
We're back. Or Trustee
Yeah,
McNeil, sorry.
that's okay. But thank you for listening to our feedback. I really do like this concept so much better. You really did take the time to add some character, which I think is what was lacking. The other building just felt like it was Chicago or Evanston and just a big box. And this is much better in terms of fitting in with the aesthetics of the downtown. I echo Trustee Masic's concerns still about the parking. I know some people have said, oh, it's not very busy during the day over on top, but when I went to the Royal Bliss concert, which was just one of our Thursday night concerts, I had to park way beyond the Piggly Wiggly just to go. So it would have been better for me just to walk from my home a few neighborhoods away. So I do still have that concern if there's something we can work out. I don't know if the village has plans to do a parking garage or some sort of joint effort with that, but I'm not entirely convinced that we won't have parking issues on our busy nights. And the people of Antioch are festive people. They do their Thursday night concerts. There's multiple parades throughout the year. Many different events. So, but I do really appreciate your time and effort. I do like this concept. I think it's a great idea to bring people into the town, and I do appreciate the character. My only question, just from a design standpoint, and I'm not a designer, but when I look at the downtown, I see a lot of those, I don't know what they're called, but they're like the bump out windows. Does that make sense? Does that fit at all in any way, or could it fit? Like kind of that Victorian look where they, you know, there's a big window in the side for this. Yeah, is that something that could be incorporated, or it really doesn't go?
It really depends.
Okay.
You know, and the more we push the building closer to the property line to keep that street wall, then you get into the issue of, you want to get into overhanging on the right of way and all that, but that's a detail that we'd be happy to have a conversation.
Okay. Those are my comments right now, but the parking is still kind of a hang up for me, but I do like this, and thank you for your time listening to all of our feedback. So that's it.
Thank you. Trustee Martinez.
I concur with my colleagues here on the board, including Trustee Masick with the concerns over parking, but I think also you have to look at it as a field of dreams kind of quote, where if you build it, he will come. And I think that if we get this first phase, eventually we'll get to the next phases of development that talk about parking. And so for me, as originally stated, my first concern was the original concept that was presented that did not fit our unique look here on Main Street. And I commend you for doing a great job. And I really do agree with Trustee Bluehart, where if you can snap your fingers and pop it up right here in front of us, that we would be pleasantly surprised at the amount of attraction this will bring to our.
Right, Trustee Pierce.
I had three thoughts that kind of came to mind as you were going through this. The first thing was the parking that Trustee Macy brought up. And when I looked at the drawing on the screen here, with the pretty colors, that picture up there looks great, by the way. That's something I think what we're looking for, more towards the character of Antioch. But when I looked at the layout of the drawing and everything, it reminded me of and you may not understand this, and it's not as an insult. When I go to Madison, I stay in Middletown at Staybridge Suites. And in the Staybridge Suites in Madison, because of the weather, the environment, their parking is down underneath, which would add an extreme amount of cost, I know. But when you go there, you go into the parking underneath, it's warm, it's friendly, it's inviting, it feels safe. It's snowing outside or 10 below zero outside, you're not walking or sloughing yourself across to the municipal parking lot, whatever deal we work with you on parking. So I would invite you to look at the cost of putting parking underneath, because I think it'd be a selling point for you to make a little bit more money and spend more money, but it would fit more into the parking concerns for the village. The other thing I was thinking about was, you brought up the bank on the other corner that's right up against the street and how it's up against the street. That kind of limits on the accessibility of handicapped people because of the way the sidewalks over there arranged. If you go over there and look, that sidewalk is a nightmare over there with the way they tried to make it work and fit in. This would be a perfect opportunity to showcase accessibility in Antioch and how to make it so people can get around in and out of their cars. I spent 2 years unloading my mother-in-law from the car and in a wheelchair, and it was god awful. You know, so and I know more and more people need accessibility, so this will be a good place to showcase that.
The code without the state and everything else require that anyway, so we would have to make sure that we apply and make sure that the plans were handicap accessible.
Right, but I'm talking along the streets and paved and everything designed to make it easier for people.
Sure.
To kind of set the tone for future issues in Antioch. So
Okay.
parking underneath, accessibility, and keeping something like this looks fine. I even kind of like the little patios on the side where people would throw water balloons if you don't by.
Trustee Peterson?
I think, again, I think the building is beautiful and it is in keeping with what we would have in mind. I have a question though, shouldn't we get the Ainsley involved with this, something like this to make sure that it goes with it? Pardon me?
For the historical group?
Well, yes, for, we have her guiding us with, in keeping with what we want for our historic value.
Sure.
And our,
Sure. When do they meet? Once a month? The first Monday of
Yeah.
the month? I mean, I would definitely have them look at this. I historic preservation committee.
Yeah.
And I would just want them to understand that
I know they're advisory.
the pushback would be the eliminating current buildings that are here that are historical. I don't know if that's, I'm saying it might not be
Well,
able to be salvaged in some of the current buildings.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could definitely put that on their agenda. Is Jim Moran leading that now?
We're in a transition, trying to figure out.
Okay, but yeah, we should definitely, and we have a historical society and we had some plans in the works, not in these buildings, to put some of them potentially in the historic registry, like the schoolhouse across the street. So they may have some feedback. I know there'd been some talk, the theater across the street is trying to do a new facade as well. There was some debate whether it needed to go back to like a 1920s look or an Art Deco look. So there's a couple, so they might have some ideas of other things that are happening in town with those other facades. But yeah, we put you in touch with them and get their feedback. I think they can.
And to make a suggestion without, I don't want to grab defeat from the base of grassroots victory or something. But, I don't think we have any problem meeting with them. It may be a little premature.
Sure.
I think if we've got big issues like parking and things like that, I think if we can firm up what we're really doing here a little bit. And then when we're talking about the elevation, that is a concept. But then bring them in at the appropriate time.
okay.
It's a suggestion,
It was just a
however you want.
suggestion.
Sure.
Okay. And then my other point that I have is, you said 42 apartments?
42.
42, okay. So we're talking about 68 apartment or parking spots over in the municipal lot? Approximately?
No, today's standards, and again, there's a lot of variables we would be bringing to you with experts and the like. But right now, parking is somewhere around 1.5 cars per unit. Another way they look at it is the number of bedrooms. And believe me, this is not just me standing here saying that. What we would do is I would stand here and say it. and we back it up with the facts. So what we're seeing in all the apartments that we're doing all across the Midwest is anywhere from, well, Ann Arbor was 0.96, and then they wanted it to be less, but anywhere from 1.4 to 1.7 as a range of parking. So, but again, that's what we're suggesting.
But then there's guest parking.
I'm just saying what, and
Okay.
the smaller projects do need more, so we need to work that through, but it is not a 2+ cars and things like that.
We would engage with a parking traffic consultant that would give you all of the nation requirements and the local requirements of what they see as the bar as the ones.
But see, my problem is, that's all well and good, but they don't live here. And we're stuck with the problem. When we don't have enough parking anymore to have an event here, because your building is taking up all of our parking. So this is a big issue for us. There are times that there isn't one spot in this whole town because people come from all over to the events. So with all due respect, you know, you're gonna bring in your experts, but we're stuck with the problem when it's done.
We're not. We're taking notes and we will respond to all of this. We're not here to get adversarial, and we're not here to create a problem for your community. You guys as a collective team with us, we need to find the sweet spot of creating some vibrancy in the downtown and creating it. And if parking, if it's a one day a year, that's one thing. If we're creating a problem every single weekend, then that doesn't work either. So we're not here to just say jam it in. We're saying let's try and see if there's a way with this parcel right here, we can figure out a win-win for it. So we're writing down parking because every single person mentioned parking, so we're listening.
It's a problem here, yeah.
And,
Right now, it's a problem here.
so, thank you, and I thank you guys for, we're gonna have to take more comments if there are more questions from the board. But yeah, this plan is, a lot better. I think something like this is very important to the future of the downtown. And we're not trying to be, I don't want Antioch to think that we're gonna be Arlington Heights or Palatine, but if you look what's going on in like downtown McHenry or Grays Lake, this density is what is causing those towns to thrive and be vibrant. And I too struggle with picturing some of the bad rentals we have and work as a board to clean that situation up. I don't wanna, use those as an example for this. And I agree with the parking. You know me, I like to think about projects that cost a lot of money, but for the last 5 years or before that, I always envisioned that at some point that municipal lot next to the Limerick would be like a 1 or 2 story garage, which would, and I mean, most of the time unless it's a big event, we don't have a parking problem in Antioch. I think we have more of like a walking problem in Antioch. Nobody wants to walk a block or two to go somewhere. Because we have that big lot behind Main Street, the big lot here, and maybe they're not that visible. But I will be, these is getting probably more into the details, but there will probably be some discussions about TIF ideas, other ideas where it may be the time in public-private conjunction that, a parking garage like the one in Libertyville, a smaller one is thought about and alleviate some of those issues. But not asking them to open up their wallets yet, but we'll have those discussions, I guess, in the future. But if there's more questions, please ask them. But I think the consensus would be this is the right direction for what the board envisions at this corner in the future. Scott?
You just touched upon, he touched upon something, and you touched upon something. You mentioned Grays Lake and you mentioned Cram. I've been involved with Grays Lake for a long time, as my wife from, so I spent a lot of my time in Grays Lake, going back and forth with parents' house. They had a nice old grocery store right downtown at the end of Center Street, and then went out of business years ago. They built apartments to bring in population to shop their stores and they do what works down there. To me, it's a monstrosity the way that it was crammed in there. That's there. It's like 5 stories tall. First story is like a laundry mat, a store, but it's 5 stories tall. It's off center from the intersection. So if we're gonna cram it in, that's not. So, but if we do it right, then this will head in the right direction if they work.
I'm a resident of Libertyville, and someone mentioned the parking structure there. They hit the nail on the head there. You know, they're very simple. There's two of the smaller ones that are municipal owned, and that on the weekends and everything else, that takes care of, and they do a lot of events as well. Very active. It took a while for people to kind of want to go park in a parking garage and over there and everything else, but they definitely ring the bell when it comes to helping the league so they can take care of some issues.
So you can charge more rent because you get more customers.
All right, any other questions? All right, thanks guys for coming back and we'll keep, set up our next follow-ups, next steps, this, all right? Thank you. All right, next item is discussion regarding ordinance amending section 8-4C-2 of the Antioch Village Code regarding hours at the Sequoia Creek Park. And open to minors.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is the one you guys should stay for, your feedback. Okay, this is the one I wanna, hey, ask up here.
Gee, go wrestle back.
Well, thank you, Mayor. So as the board is aware, Sequoia Creek Park and how it's activated, some of the challenges faced with a new vibrant community, public space has been something that's been a kind of constant debate and discussion, not only at the staff level, but certainly on social media. And I know that as elected officials, you're bombarded with concerns around the clock in regards to things that take place at the park. So it's kind of a part of this endeavor. I wanted to open up a discussion with the board to kind of get your feedback on how you see us best addressing some of these concerns. I think a number of the challenges and feedback that you're hearing from our community predominantly involve youth within the park, particularly after hours. Not necessarily of things of a criminal nature. Certainly we have some criminal activities that do take place there, but more so what I would categorize is nuisance adolescent behavior. Language, climbing on things they shouldn't climb on, some minor acts of vandalism, riding bikes, riding dirt bikes through motorized vehicles, that sort of thing. So kind of working through the board of different variations to certain degrees of extent to which we can deal with these things. So the first thing that we wanted to walk through with our legal team was to determine to what extent do we have the authority to limit the times in which underage individuals or minors can be within the park as a non-home rule community. So Jimmy and his legal team did a pretty deep dive into what our regulatory powers are, and for those that would typically qualify under a traditional curfew ordinance, which would be under the age of 17, we do have the ability to restrict public spaces such as the park, essentially establishing requirements at which you would have to have supervision to be in the park. So in a very draft ordinance you have before you, it would essentially be from 6 a.m. till the time the sun sets, that minors would be allowed to be in the park in an unaccompanied fashion, at which time all of our other community parks close to the public. And this would allow us to put a restriction in place that at the same time all of our community parks closed to the public. Sequoia Creek Park would close to unaccompanied minors, being those under the age of 21, unless accompanied by a parent or somebody the age of 21 years old that is going to take responsibility for it. So that would kind of be the far extent of how far we could take this. Certainly open to feedback on whether or not you feel that that's appropriate for our community to have something in place for a new park such as this. I feel that there's probably a number of administrative tools that we can look at as well, just basing it on some statistical data that we put together on a number of challenges. I can admit that we do have a lot of juvenile, call it horseplay, I guess for lack of a better term, that takes place within the park. I don't think we're going to completely solve the problems regardless of the time this unaccompanied, if we put an unaccompanied minor ordinance in place. It's not going to solve all the problems. Matter of fact, we'll probably create
some additional challenges, because then it comes down to the enforcement component for how we're gonna navigate these things. Are we gonna become the kid police, where we're gonna be in there checking people's IDs, their ages, all these kinds of things? Kind of become a nuisance to our residents by asking them to prove their age. And then again, as a smaller police department, there's gonna be a lot of things that we're just not gonna do anything about, right? And I know this board has spoken at lengths about they hate when we pass codes and ordinances for the sake of passing codes and ordinances without the ability to enforce them. So there is an enforcement concern from the PD's perspective if this were to go through. Other tools that we could take to try to reduce some of the challenges that we have are looking at hours of operation of our amenities. And we have vandalism issues in the bathroom. Matter of fact, today, the PD is investigating one where what appears to be an underage individual rode a motorized mini bike into the men's bathroom, did a burnout inside the bathroom at the park, and did some damage to the epoxy floor with the bathroom. Right, so what's that time? About 9:30. Well, it happened on the 4th. It was just reported to us. Because we said it is. Okay, all right, okay. So
I might know that, I might get a description for you. Okay.
So we do have good video of the passenger on the vehicle, but I don't want to go down the whole path. So we're investigating that. But again, if we look at tools like, rather than having the bathroom at 10 o'clock, we look at shortening the length of those times, right? So we have the bathroom at 8 o'clock, we're dark, those types of things. Again, that dissuade individuals and prohibit them from accessing certain amenities. Medicare Part A, B. So again, not to belabor my introduction. I really want to hear from you as our policymakers on the direction do you feel it would go. I don't know that we truly need to go to the extent right now of an unaccompanied minor ordinance. I think we, in some form or fashion, we created this public space. We put amenities in there knowing that they would draw people, including youth, who want to use them. But it's a policy decision on the board. We want to limit the times that we're speaking. Yeah.
As the former park ranger over there, I kind of probably have some good insight in when things seem to happen. I'm not really, especially not in favor of the dusk part, because it just seems really spitting what time of the year it is. I will tell you that there's different types of activities that happen there at different times that one sweeping ordinance will not help. I do believe that when we turned the fire pits off at 10 o'clock versus midnight or whatever, that made a big difference, because it was just like I'll just like put kryptonite there for teenagers, because that's like what it was in the evening. There's two different issues and kids are gonna be kids, and it's called public park for a reason. After school to, let's say, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, you get kids from the age of 12 to 16 who are being destructive to equipment and using language that would make all of us blush in front of the little kids, and running around the kids and knocking them around. And for me, that's more of a during that time, having somebody there that's either the security guard or somebody like at least monitoring that short term. In the evening, you'll get groups of teenagers, which again, I would have been one of them if I was growing up at that time too, where they come in there and they park and they play their music and do whatever else they're doing in different groups. And that usually is from, say, dark, whatever time that'd be, 8, 9 o'clock till 10 until the things go off, and sometimes they'll linger around there till midnight. So maybe I would say at least say like parks close at 10 o'clock, including like the bathrooms and everything. And then have some other enforcement, in that early evening hours, so that families or people, there's one time I drove by there in the evening in their groups, and I was like, okay, I can see how somebody could feel unsafe because they're like groups of kids swarming. And I just want to make sure people are, feel safe there. So it's like two different generations causing, different problems. Again, kids are going to be kids. I'm not saying that, but I think there are two different issues that aren't going to be solved by one ordinance like this, if that makes sense. I was a long roundabout on this, but that's kind of what I observed over there over the year I was at that parking.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel, and I know we've had some discussions about what the hours of operation of the park, what the operations of that park should look like. In conversations with Chief DeServi and Fox Lake, one of the most efficient tools that they have in controlling some of the problems that they have within Lakefront Park is park physically closes at a designated time. Right, so it's not just closed to juveniles, it's closed to everybody. And again, theirs is kind of off the beaten path, so it's a little bit different scenario, whereas ours is kind of within the center of town. But again, that's a tool that would be at the board's disposal as well. It's just saying that there's really no need for anybody to be in the park after X hour, right? So you can say that, rather than closing at 10 o'clock for juveniles, do we close the park to the community at 10 o'clock, which becomes from an enforcement perspective a little bit easier, because then if we see somebody in there at 10 o'clock, nobody should be there.
And I'll say this, what I'm trying to find a solution for, and hopefully this thinking out loud is, say you're a couple and you want to go sit in that park at 8 o'clock and it's getting dark, but you have all these kids like running around and swearing and riding their scooters and being disrespectful, or kind of coming in groups and making you feel uncomfortable or unsafe. Like, I don't know how to solve that by an ordinance, but that's, I think, where some of the people are feeling like, okay, like I gotta get out of here because it's getting a little bit. And I know Rebecca goes there a lot. I think Scott goes there a lot. I'm sure we all do, but two of the girls in my office go there a lot, and they kind of have that vibe sometimes. And I don't know what the solution is for that, but I think that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, so certainly, again, at that point, I'm typically I try to be a data-driven individual, right? And we certainly have, again, groups of individuals that are less than respectful. And I think sometimes when young people act in certain ways, it could leave a sense of a concern over safety in the park, right? So from our cafe operator, she's expressed concerns about her staff not feeling safe when they're leaving at night, because there's groups of individuals in there that use some off-color language and are probably a little bit louder than they should be. They say things that, any of our grandmothers would have slapped us for saying in front of folks. But making that leap from that behavior to it being actual criminal behavior are completely two different things, right? We don't have a crime problem in the park, right? We have some acts of vandalism. We had that one tragic incident where we had a young man have a couple of his teeth knocked out, right? But we've had those in any park within the village, right? We're not immune from crime. So I don't want to paint it to say that we have, with a broad brush, to say we have a safety issue or a crime issue within that park. Data says we do not.
Yeah.
Data says we have large societal problems with young individuals that just don't respect others' personal spaces.
Sure.
We could solve those problems.
It's called parenting problems.
Yes.
Trustee Bluthart?
Growing up, I was raised in a family with a police officer, but we were raised, and my friends and everyone in our community was raised to respect our officers. And a lot of that respect came from the officers disciplining, I guess, enforcing these rules that we have in place. And I'm just gonna mention an issue, a Thursday concert. Another trustee and I were looking down at the park, watched I'll say community service officer, surrounded by a bunch of kids. At the same time, the kids railing, or whatever they call it, on the concrete wall with his skateboard while the officer's standing there. He just walks right out, doesn't do anything, and those kids have no respect for those guys because they're not enforcing the rules that are in place over there. I get it, they're kids. We don't want to give them this problem or else, but you know what? You start enforcing it where they have to come to a juvie court or have to do something. You know what? It's going to clean that park up pretty dang quick. And I know it's going to be more effort on the police, and I know it's going to be more effort on a bunch of people, but until you enforce the rules we have in place, putting new ones in place aren't going to do a damn thing. And that's what I see. I mean, I walked there the one day I went up to the cafe. There were, like what you said, probably 20, 25 young males, all on their skateboards, all zooming around in front of the cafe, Latte Cafe over there, yelling, screaming, everything else. I was ready to say something and I did. That's what I'm talking about. We need enforcement of these rules that we have in place, the no bikes, the no skateboarding, all that stuff. If we start enforcing it, it will get around. We also need to educate the community about what the rules are and tell them that we're having issues and tell them, you know, to let these parents know that your kids are gonna start getting fined, ticketed, whatever we have to do. I don't know what we're allowed to do, being that they're minors, but until we start enforcing those rules, we can't expect anything to change over there. I know it's gonna be more work. I know we don't wanna do that if we don't have to, but we put a lot of money in it, and like what the mayor said and others have said, that's the one complaint I've heard is adults that want to go there and enjoy the park are not going because of all the kids hanging around doing it. Now, I want the kids there, but they have to behave. If they're not behaving, what do we do about it? We either have to start enforcing the rules, banning them from the park, doing other things like that, but we need to have a process in place, you know, so many check guards, so many whatever, until they are, you know, can't come back. I agree with the closing the park at a certain time. I think that would be probably better than doing where the minors can't be there. But I think that's our solution long-term, and it needs to be something that's at all our parks. It's gotta be something that's uniform in all of our community, but we have to enforce those rules. If we start doing that, you get one or two of those kids that get caught and get in trouble, it will have an effect on everybody else. And I strongly believe that.
Certainly, so let me try to kind of talk through some of those things. You know, certainly the expectation is if our community service officers are in those parks and they're turning a blind eye to behaviors that they should be addressing, that's concerning to me. So I will certainly look into that. We'll have to have a follow-up conversation about that.
Right.
The other component is also understanding the limitations of what the community service officers enforcement of powers are. So at the end of the day, you know, they can write a parking ticket, they can enforce some of the codes relative to property maintenance, that sort of thing, but they don't have the authority to stop, detain, and cite an individual in the park. They can walk up to somebody, ask them, you know, hypothetically, you know, what's your name? And they have the ability to, you know, in today's society, they can usually tell a police officer to go pound sand, but certainly a community service officer doesn't have that authority to do that. Not much different than a private security, right? Just they're guardians, right? They sit and they watch and they observe and they report and they can call for an officer to come over there. You know, if it's the will of the board that we want to have police officers in the park, which is what it would take to have police officers, much like the park district police department would have within the park, that have these statutory abilities to cite and detain and enforce the laws with a little bit more teeth than a stern finger waving. It was certainly something we would have to look at a budgetary component, to make sure that we had coverage in that park 7 days a week, even for one shift. You know, you're talking about having to expand the police department probably by 3 full-time employees, or incurring rather significant expense in the overtime, right? But again, even on the overtime component, we would have challenges finding the backfills to staff our streets. And it's kind of that chicken or the egg type argument that we talked about. Like, we recognize that we have a greater need in expanding our public safety services. We want to see the community, we want an active and engaged police department. But it comes back to that whole challenge of figuring out from budgetary component of how do we make that happen without breaking the bank, so to speak. As I mentioned before, you know, we're still, even at full staff, we're still operating at 2007 levels, right? We could probably debate to the end of time that how things have changed since then for our community and the challenges we face. But it's finding a way to balance the community's expectations, your expectations of a police department, as a board member and as a board, with our abilities to staff those, if that makes sense.
It totally does, but I guess the question I have is that CSO who's on the site, he can't arrest, like you said, can't do those various things, but he can call on his radio to an officer to come if he's got an actual issue that needs to be dealt with. So I'm not saying that we need to have police in there 24/7, But the officers that are there, one, they have to enforce the rules, and if they're not listening to those people, then they have to get an officer involved so that we have a paper trail on these individuals.
Certainly. And the unfortunate part is really the only thing we have the ability to do is to issue fines or citations, right? But again, we get into this huge debate over social justice, equity, all these kind of things right now with kids and parents. But that's about where our abilities, our powers begin and end. Being a public space, we truly don't really have the statutory authority to ban people from being there. I'll have the attorney share that if there's further questions. But
Can we acknowledge that, it appears we are talking about items number 4 and 5 and pulling those into one item here since they're all related. So they're talking about security. I
think Ed has.
Yeah, here's the biggest problem is there's very little signage. If I was a kid, I'd be down there fishing. And if they came up, you have a fishing license, I'd say you're not being there, go away. Okay, I would challenge them every minute because there's nothing down there. They need a two more cameras, but there's inadequate signage. And the other big problem you have, and we're gonna pay for it one way or the other, is you got a young officer group. Is someone screws up and detains a kid whose parent is someone, and they throw a lawsuit in, that's gonna hurt the village, and you don't want that young officer losing his immunity.
Well, so with the notice on the rules, Ed, at one point we had those placards, whatever happened.
Yeah, took over, they speed by under.
Okay, so
it's in Katie's plan to figure out signage approach for next year.
You gotta make it simple, you're on camera.
and I would love to see, again, not having to detain kids, but write a couple tickets and have some kids come before Judge Teddy and see how fun that is for them, for the Ted Cogoniac. As yes, we'll have lots of volunteers at the Parks events if Ted's in charge of that. So, yeah. Rebecca over here, Rebecca, to you.
I was just gonna comment, and I know I talked to the administrator about this before, but as written, I'm not a fan of this. I understand the concerns at the park, but I also drive by and see teenagers who are being respectful and enjoying the fire pits when I come home late with their friends, and I just am not a fan of punishing everybody just because of other people. So I'd rather see more of an enforcement, like Trustee Luther said, not to the extreme that we're detaining these children, but if we need to write a ticket or call for an officer, so be it. But I also feel like banning the kids at dusk really doesn't make a difference for the behavior. They're just gonna move to another park. They're gonna go to the skate park or behind the Vegas Cafe or the William Burke Memorial area. I don't really think it's solving a behavioral issue. And if I'm understanding it, a lot of these issues are happening right after school, like the mayor said. So the dusk thing really just doesn't help.
Can I ask a question on the park itself? Do the bathrooms, are they open all night?
No.
Okay, 10 o'clock. Okay, so it is kind of closing down at 10 o'clock, but no signage. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
I didn't know if they can get in there at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And Trustee, you have a great point. These types of problems have always existed with kids. It's just now it's right out the open where everybody sees it, because the police department, we dealt with this skate park opened and many of these very similar challenges.
It's funny because you probably had it.
I recall when the skate park opened, the concerns of the community and all these types of things, right? Where we went through a very much a similar exercise, but in time, public sentiment died down a little bit, but now that everyone's moved from the skate park over here.
They're very visible there. We can all see it.
Like I said, it's like we took all these little areas and put it all in one spot for everybody to come to, so we see them all in place, and we just gotta somehow enforce it. We teach kids like, hey, you have to be respectful in this park. You're not going to be welcome here. And I mean, when I'm talking kids, I'm talking about preteens and teens.
And the parents too. I've
And the
seen
parents.
parents encouraging their kids to throw rocks in the creek, and it's like you're the adult. So
In the creek.
yeah, it's a problem across the board, not just with not with the youth, it's
Yeah.
adults too,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
frustrating. So I'm not in favor of the age. I would be in favor of time limits, locking the bathrooms, everything else that you mentioned, but not this specifically. And that's all I have.
As someone that works with the public, just the same as our staff here, I would say that police presence in itself is a deterrent. and more of it is always welcome. And by circumstance, I did see someone walk in the park this past weekend, so I would encourage more of that. I also would encourage, like, trustee Bluehart mentioned, was maybe start talking to some of the, school staff at District 34 and 117 and letting them know that, the hammer's coming, that there is gonna be more accountability, whether they like it or not, we're gonna be enforcing the rules that we have, and letting those principals let their students know that this is a conversation that needs to be held there, just as we're having held here. I do encourage having some sort of written ordinance on the docket, more so as a way to limit our liability, and more so because we're attempting to keep the park open for adults. The next stage will be closing them like we close the other parks, and yet dusk in the middle of summer is 9:30 at night, so we are allowing them to have a full presence there. So for me, I think to myself, it's just like, you know what, if we don't nip this now, we're gonna have to go another step further. And again, it's just to prevent damage and limit our liability and other concerns. We're talking within a year's time, we've had 580 calls at the park. We're right, Chief, the last time we talked. So, you know, when you start talking about that, you start talking about the fact that it's just like it's time on the force that they have to spend at the park. Time is money. Time is taxpaying money. So for me, for those reasons amongst others, I think that we have to start looking into putting some sort of ordinance on file. But if we can at first start off with having more of a police presence, then letting the public know where we feel as a board we need to start enforcing our rules to keep the park as clean and orderly as we have it. And, you know, obviously, it's a showpiece that we want to continue to present to the community. That's all.
Question for the chief. We have the people coming in on the ordinance violations now, communication court. Are those tickets being written by an officer, or can the CSO write those tickets? Just,
You mean for like the park violation?
yeah, like kid throwing glass, like she's like kid throwing a glass, the glass pieces. Officers and officers. Okay. Thank you. Trustee Pierce? You know, I really like the park, as the chief says, we moved everything from the skate park to this park. And I remember the big to-dos at the park, people calling for cameras, the kid that got hit with a baseball bat by the parent, I think it was. That caused a big public outcry, and everything just shifted over here. I remember when I was a kid, we'd be driving our car down what we call Cherry Road, and the merchants were like, "Get them out of here, get them out of here." And we'd be like, "No, we're not leaving," you know. And every generation has their version of this problem. The problem is now this is so visible here, it's so intrusive that we have to do something. And I don't necessarily like well, if you're 21 and over, you can be there. You're under 21, you can't be there because, as we all know, you can't ask a kid for an ID without having a civil lawsuit and 5 attorneys standing around you looking for some extra money. Sorry. We're good, you know. So we got issues there if you try to do those work. But if we've got ordinances that say you can't do this, the CSOs need to be out of their cars. They need to be walking. I know they have a challenge because as they walk over this side, the kids walk over this side, and whatever they're gonna do over on this side, and the CSOs go over there, and the kids go over there, and they're playing ring around the rosy sometimes over there. But there's a lot of times when I drive by to check out the park that the CSO is sitting in his car, you know, and that may be an issue. They need to be out walking. They need to be present. And if kids are doing things like riding their mini bikes or their bikes, it shouldn't be Trustee Pierce saying, "Hey, get your bike out of here." You know, it should really be the whole community, but it should at least be our CSOs. And if they don't do it, they should be calling the cops, and they should be getting tickets, and they should be going to adjudication court. Their parents should be paying a fine, and whatever else the judge can do. But in the meantime, we have to do it properly. But we can't just let them, because we don't wanna deal with it, or we don't wanna be, it's too much of an overburden to not deal with it. It's just easier to put up with all the complaints and to deal with it. It's not right either. But we have to find something to do. And the first thing is maybe the park closure at 10 o'clock at night. And then enforcing, if somebody's doing something wrong, maybe for a while having police officers pay the overtime. I mean, we're paying one way or the other. I remember years ago, I ran against Mary Priller, and she advocated very strongly, we need more teen activities in this community. And I think Trustee Berman advocated the same thing, and there's been other members on this board that advocated, we need stuff for kids to do. Now, I remember when I was a kid, they said, hey, that's a great structured thing for you to do. I'd be like, I'm gone, I'm out of here. I'd go over to the skate park in Costa, face up and down Cherry Road, and still have the people yell at me. But we haven't invested in things for our kids. Maybe as we move forward, for a short time, have overtime for officers to be there to enforce the rules, write tickets, and bring the hammer down, as Trustee Martinez says, and enforce those rules, but come up with some way to provide a structured, more controlled outlet for them. We've got a senior center sitting there empty half the time. Maybe we can direct them over there and have activities over there, or something that they can hang out in that parking lot as long as they're near the police station. Not that I want you guys to be babysitters, but we need to come up with something that we can't just ship them to a skate park, to the Sequoia Park, and when we do Centennial Park, they'll move to Centennial Park, and then when we do Peterson Park, they all move to Peter. We can't just keep shipping. We need to know something structured for the kids that want to do the structured things to do.
And if I could respond, Mary, you're okay if I kind of blend into the next topic as well? So one of the other issues for discussion too is what I'm hearing consistently, and I don't need to kind of catch off trustee leaders for you guys here, is the board would like to see more of a presence at the park, right? From an operational perspective, having the CSOs do that does blend into some challenges because they're part-time employees. I only have so many of them, fewer than I used to. And their primary responsibility is community service, which also has responsibility when we do jail people. One of their jobs is to do the prisoner inventory. So on our occasions, we detail somebody over on a Friday night, and we have to lock somebody up and they have to be pulled off of that detail, leaving that void at the parks. They can kind of serve more their broader job specific responsibilities. So I think the next item on the agenda was I was going to seek some feedback from the board is what are the thoughts of a contracted security service for the park? I know that was something that was discussed at a very conceptual idea with the board when the park opened. Oxley does it. They have somebody that is there from 12 in the afternoon till the closure. I think there's 8 o'clock. I got to double check that, but then on nights of events like concerts and stuff, it'll stay an extra hour. So roughly 8 to 9 hours per day, 7 days a week. From the start of their season, which is April-ish, through the end of their concert season, which is about now. So probably apples to apples from a cost perspective component, probably more affordable or less costly for the village to contract those services. Currently Fox Lake is paying roughly $40 an hour during the week and $60 holidays or other designated special circumstances that they have. And that detail is a uniformed security officer, unarmed, with a car, with direct access to the police department to call and do those observe and report activities that the CSOs do, and you would like to see them more to do. But it would give us a broader presence, and we could structure an RFP or a contract. However, if the board thinks that we should have security at that park 7 days a week, sun up to sundown, we could certainly do that. I don't think that's necessary, but if we started in when we open the splash pad and go through Halloween, whatever that may be, just rough calculation, probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 to $90,000 cost which is gonna get you a lot more coverage at that $40 an hour rate versus an overtime rate for a police officer, which are probably closer somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 plus payroll tax and all those other things that go along with paying an employee to do it. Like,
Well, even when this park opened, I didn't mind the idea of hiring a security board person. I think it's important to set a precedent, like, either early on or now at the point, like set a precedent, like can't mess around in this park or there's gonna be a consequence. And I think again, given that I was there a lot, I think I can pretty much write the hours, but I don't think it's all day coverage, all year coverage. I can pretty much write the hours, from 2 or 3 in the afternoon to 10 o'clock at night in summer, and then a lot less hours after, October to April, May. But yeah, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to at least set the precedent, even if it's for a couple months or, now and in the beginning of the summer again, like, hey, we're not gonna tolerate this. I think it's definitely something investing in and, here's the flip side of it. People don't want to have park anymore. They don't go downtown. They don't want to spend money at the cafe. They don't want to come to the park and go to other restaurants. You may be spending 40 grand, but you may be losing more than that by people saying, "Hey, we're not going down there anymore because we want to be in that park." Yeah. And
May I give input?
yeah.
Okay. There are kids that are 16, 17 years old out on a date. They'd love to go over there, and there's not much for them to do. So they can go to a movie and see a rated R movie, but they can't be at the park. So I don't like the age restriction. Do we have a curfew in this town?
yes.
We do.
The state has a curfew, yes.
Okay, what is that?
Also sounds.
I don't even know.
9 o'clock during the week, midnight on the weekends.
So 17, under 17, so 16 and below,
All right,
11 o'clock, Sunday through Thursday nights, Friday, Saturday nights is
midnight. Okay. I'm thinking that a 10 o'clock closure would be great. Most adults aren't gonna be there anyway. And unless we're having a big event uptown or, it's 4th of July or something. But I like the idea of a private firm. I think it would be better. You need your officers where you need your officers, and a private firm would be better suited for us here. And I think in the long run, less expensive. I know Warren Township has a private firm that watches their park daily. And he comes at 3 and he leaves at 9. So, I might even want to call over there. They have an ordinance written about, and I would like to see an ordinance that encompasses everything. When July, I was witness to 3 different buses. Those little tiny buses that come from daycares. Those little preschools. And they just show up. So there could be 40, maybe even more, 50 kids from those preschools coming from other communities. And they overrun the splash pad, and our kids can't, the moms just grab their kids and get out of there. I know that, I'm gonna say Warren Township again, but their park is almost the size of our park. And it's been there for a long time, and you're not allowed to come there on a bus. You can't bring more than 10 children there. Even a private mother can't come there with more than 10 kids. You have to get a reservation. They have to know you're coming. You have to have a certificate of insurance. And if you don't have that, you're asked to leave, and they bring the ordinance right out and show them. So they have to go. Plus there's security there that says you have to go. So they don't do that there anymore. And for birthday parties, you can't have 20 kids overrun the park. Now, if all those moms come with and you have to have a birthday party, fine. You can have a little cake and sing or whatever, but you can't take over an area. You can't take over the playground. You can't put up decorations And these are the things that we need in an ordinance that is going to stop these people from, deciding to get married there on a Saturday afternoon. So I just think that I'd like to see one ordinance written that encompasses all of it. But I guess for right now, we can actually close the park at 10 o'clock.
I wanna ask what your mom would have done with all those kids at the park if she could take you all there.
I never went to a park other than Fox River Park.
Just if you're,
Well, first of all, I want to go old school. Can't we use our text system at 10 o'clock at night to text every cell phone? It's 10 o'clock, where are your?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Kids are-
Yes, I see what you're-
We won't be right about that. After the first step. But anyways, I just have to question the private security. I think it's a great idea, especially just more cost effective that they're at least over there, they're active, they're presence, and they're calling the police when the police need to show up, and then the police show up. But I thought I'd been told that due to the FOP contract, we couldn't have private security, nor could we hire part-time officers to do things. I wanna make sure we conform to our contract. If there's issues with the contract, maybe we can figure out a way to work with it.
Twofold answer. So, correct, by ordinance and by contract, we can't hire part-timers. That would be a mandatory bargaining component with the union. But as far as private security, no, they don't have the ability to control from management perspective. We hire private security to offer private contracted services.
All right, well, let's get a revised ordinance with a 10 o'clock time frame. I wanna do that, but also let's get an RFP or some various contact or some in Fox Lake and get a couple of bids on what the hourly rate would be over there, so.
So is the board envisioning this taking effect this current fiscal year, or would you like to see it kicked into next spring? We're kind of wrapping up the season. Summer ends, problems decline. So
Definitely maybe, like, I know we have.
we're coming in the budget again,
Yeah.
I believe it.
Trustee,
Can I ask Katie a question?
Yes.
Are you aware of any ordinances that are written, from your previous job, any ordinances that are already in place that we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Yes, so that's what I've been working with our attorney on, getting a draft together, the information that I presented last week, or 2 weeks ago, apologize. So it would be, I had proposed limiting gatherings of 25 people or more. That would require a permit, and it's not that we wouldn't grant permits, it's that we would require them to tell us that they're going to be getting together, and then we can tell them what the rules are to say, hey, you can't decorate our pergolas, or we have a program going on that day, so you can't get married on Saturday, things like that. And no, you can't go fishing in the creek, which they do.
I know, I challenge.
I know. So yeah, that ordinance that I'm working on would sort of be encompassing without calling out specifically a group of children, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or specific groups of people. It would apply to all people so that it is inclusive of our whole community, regardless of your age.
Okay,
Did I answer your question?
yeah, you did.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
so it sounds like this has to come back to one more count with some details. Okay. All right, thank you. Any other business? The first monthly meeting, so community development, which is no reports. Finance, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustee. Director Peterson is on vacation this week, so you get to meet me. I am Becky Kajik, as Administrator introduced me. I am the new senior accountant, and I'm on my 3rd week here in Antioch, and I am happy to be joining the team here. A little about me, I came from Johnsburg. I was there for a little bit over 6 years as their former treasurer. Prior to that, I was with the Village of Lakewood for 3 years. I've been leading both the audit and budget in my former role, and both municipalities I've worked with in special service areas and tax increment finance districts. So very fun with both those. Leading into the finance department updates, the audit, Waterback and Haman were in last month for their site visit. We've been working closely with them to keep the progress moving forward. We are still on track to complete the audit and file with the state by the deadline of October 31st. Software conversion, I have taken the lead role to coordinate the setup of ACH and NACHA file transfers between BSNA, State Bank, and Heartland Bank. The implementation of vendor payments via ACH will help to cut the cost of postage, check stack, and envelopes. It will also ensure timely payments, make bank reconciliation smoother, and reduce the village's exposure to fraud. Along with that, all of the other departments are currently completing the BSNA request. Amy has been working with the data extractions, and we are still on schedule to go live October 31st. Another note, the finance department is moving. We are relocating to the back hallway in the new building. With the exception of Rachel with utility billing, she'll be staying in her office. And then Katie will be moving to Director Peterson's office, and this should be completed within the next 2 weeks. Credit card acceptance, Director Peterson sent a draft to Aaron at Attorney Selling office. He anticipates bringing forward the ordinance to the board for the discussion at the next committee of the bill. Escrow account, due to the economic development director position vacancy, a meeting was had between administration, finance, and economic development to outline the billing steps and collections for open escrow. And Sandra's input was very helpful for this process. And last two reports, High School District 117, the finance director worked with the police to outline the billing and collections for additional services requested, and we came up with a rate of $91 per hour.
Additional services requested.
Probably for the community though.
For any event.
That's their office.
We have an idea with them whenever they have a school event or request additional officers.
Okay. Thank you.
Almost nobody. That is what I have for the finance.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, board? All right, welcome.
Thank you.
The next is police. Manager or Deputy Chief, I'll get that down sometime.
That's okay. Evening. Just a quick stats from last month. We had a total of 1,564 calls of service. We issued out 267 tickets. And we took 43 crash reports throughout the village. And we made 19 arrests. Things that were discussed earlier as Chief was talking. So
Wait, 43 trash reports?
crash reports,
Oh, crash. I'm sorry.
not trash reports.
You guys stuck dealing with crash, it's ridiculous.
Last time Benny was up here, they had to fix the fire hydrant, and I could report that there was a hit and run accident. And through our flock system and some cameras at Sequoia Park, we identified the driver. And he was cited for leaving the scene of a crash. So our camera network just smells like a shield over there, yeah. You echo that sentiment. I'd like to put that out into or we would like to put that out on social media more, but sometimes with the juveniles, we're restricted by law, where we can't put that out into the media.
Can we on a regular basis just start posting pictures, random pictures of the park showing where everybody's seen at the park, or that encourage criminals where to hang out, not to?
I think they would give up our hand a lot. But I think cameras at the, signs that say.
I think smile, you're on camera all over that place would be good.
Yeah, because to be honest, there's not an area that's not.
Yeah, right. Even in the bathrooms, they might not, well, you just can't have it in the bathroom.
We don't have it in the bathrooms.
Strike that from the record, please. Strike that from the record.
Wait, I take it.
It's been a long day, right? I've been meeting since 9 o'clock.
Straight up.
Charlie Mace.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can include in our report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, on that note, I hope we don't have executive session. All right. Now I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Move trustee Pierce, second trustee Bluesmeyer, all in favor? We are adjourned at 8:10.
Trust me.
Pretty good.